Allina Health is proud to support your loons as the official healthcare provider of Minnesota United. Every day, we provide expert care to keep the team in top form on match day. All across Minnesota and western Wisconsin, you can find the same dedicated providers just a short drive away. It's expert care when and how you need it. Schedule your visit at allinahealth.org today. Allina Health, all together better. Welcome back to a very special episode of Sound of the Loons podcast brought to you by Allina Health. And given that it's May and given that it's Mental Health Awareness Month, we wanted to take some time to bring in a proper professional to give us his insights on mental health. Please welcome to the show, and for his very first podcast, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Shannon Wolf.
Well, thanks for having me. This is good to be here and talk about this.
Oh, no, I'm super excited. It's been something in my goodbye message when I retired. One of the few things I talked about lifting more, taking the gym more seriously. I talked about having a great wife. And I talked about how I wished when I was younger, I had taken some of these mental health conversations a lot more seriously than I did at the time. So in being that, we're gonna dive right into the meat of this guy, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Later on in the show, we're gonna have Ari and Ramon, two of our Academy kids, go and talk about the Change to Chill program that Allina Health offers. It's an incredible program that helps with mental health, gives a variety of different resources. They're a lot younger than me. I told them a story in 2005, 2006, and I don't think they were even born yet. I didn't want to get the answer. But regardless, kids these days, it's tough. It's tough to be a kid. It's tough to be a high schooler. What are some trends and what are some things that you've kind of picked out and seen over the course of the past few years, just with high schoolers and just dealing with everything that they go through on a daily and weekly, monthly basis?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing as you talk about that, that's about the age difference, I was immediately thinking about how different things are today. One of the things that's out there is just the language. The language is 100 degrees different than what it was before. I remember when I was in graduate school, I said something to one of my friends, and I used the term bipolar. And this was ages ago. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I finally had to put it in rock and roll terms. I'm like, like Jimi Hendrix, like manic depression. Oh, okay, I got that. Well, nowadays, all the kids have this language, which it's good they have that language and they can use it well, but it's also, they're looking for these problems. They're seeing these problems. They're putting these words on things that, many of us when we were younger, we just thought was part of growing up, and it changes how they look at it and may make things actually worse. As long as if they're finding good ways of talking about things, if they're able to, have a communication about this and figure out what really is truly a disorder or what is truly a problem versus, hey, this is just the word I'm choosing to put on today. That's if they're able to do that, that could be really helpful. But sometimes that language can kind of spin them in a different direction initially.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of times have changed. Obviously from when you were a kid, from when I was a kid, to what the kids these days go through. And the biggest thing for me is the use of social media. And thankfully, I got off of it pretty well in terms of I ended my career at the time when it's even booming now. Obviously, it's been that way for a bit, but nowadays it seems like you play a good game and you have 1,000 best friends, and you play one bad game and you have 1,000 guys that think you should never kick a soccer ball again. Have you noticed, social media kind of being almost more negative than positive at times for kids?
Absolutely. Because what we end up getting into with social media is comparison. We're looking at ideal states of situations and we're comparing ourselves to them. And whenever we compare ourselves to somebody else, it's always a losing game. Why is that? If I'm comparing myself to you, I'm looking at what you're choosing to put out there towards me. You're hiding the scary stuff, the stuff you're not proud of, the fears, the doubts that you have, and you're showing this strong way forward. And I'm comparing that with all of the good stuff, but also all of the bad stuff, all of the things that I'm not sure about, my insecurities and whatnot. And so when I compare someone's best situation to everything that includes my worst parts, we're always going to lose. And so I think that is really where social media kicks in and can really make things considerably worse.
That's fascinating. So, and when we met prior to having this conversation, I think this topic came up, but again, I wanted to dive into it more on the record. So,
Mhm.
so you were saying the thought process behind social media is if you put a picture of someone out there, me kicking a soccer ball, or me on the beach with flexing
Mhm.
my big muscles, being someone else might see that and then compare that to themselves, but then also understand some of their bad habits and like compare it to like the worst of them as opposed to a picture that they might post where it might be the best version of themselves. So they're kind of getting into this negative mindset where it's almost like this weird spiral where it kind of almost makes it worse.
Yeah, because if I see a picture of you flexing your muscles on the beach, I'll be like, oh, I'm never going to look as good as that. I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to be on a beach like that. But what I don't know is what happened right before and after that picture. Maybe you
Yeah.
were in an argument right before that picture. Maybe you got, some bad food and had, some sort of flu or something right after that. And where like, and I'm thinking you have the best life ever, and here you
Yeah.
are, horribly sick in your hotel room on the beach. And but we don't know those pieces because nobody texts out, nobody tweets out, nobody posts those videos of those types of things. So it's always like someone else's best versus all of my own insecurities. And then that gets us focused on, I may never reach that. I may never get that. And that just kind of can add things to make things worse and
That's
worse.
why I don't post photos of me on the beach because who knows? I had a stomach bug. This is why I looked like this way, and I exhaled when the picture was done. So it's not the same. Trust me, as not a player anymore. So I'm gonna cool it on those
Understood.
pictures. But you talked about just kind of expressing some of the negative aspects of things. Um, it's inherently difficult to be vulnerable, though, right? Like it's not to say to have these conversations is easy. You know what I
No.
mean? It's extremely difficult to have these. So take us into the psyche of having them or barriers that people can get around to now kind of embrace some of the chaos, embrace the challenges and the difficulty, and then be vulnerable and try to grow from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people look at mental health as something very akin to physical health, where a lot of us don't know what to do about those types of things. But when you get down to the nitty gritty of things that are going to make you continue to be healthy and your mental health be strong, some of it's not rocket science. Some of it's just simple how you take care of yourself, including the real basic things of how you take care of your body, sleeping, eating, moving your body. Some of the basic things like that will help your brain, will help your brain react to things. Also, just simple things about like how we, talk to ourselves and how we say things to ourselves. One of the most amazing things that I've recognized is that we believe what we hear ourselves say, which sounds kind of intuitive, but also kind of bizarre. But so the more I say things about myself, the more I'm going to believe it. So if I start
Hmm.
saying positive things about myself, like I will get through this, or I can handle this, or I'm strong, the more I say those things, either in my head or out loud, the more I'm going to believe that. The more I say, man, I'm awful at this, or I can't do this, or I'll never be as good as someone else, then that kind of builds up and that causes difficulties too. And so it's these are just simple things that when folks can start making some of those changes, they can find themselves being in a healthier spot.
Yeah. No, I've tried to say I'm going to be fast, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't work with speed, I guess. Maybe with how I'm feeling. So, but you're saying there's actually a method to the madness for having your cup be half full as opposed to being half empty.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you are looking at if you're continually saying your cup is half full, you will see your cup half full. It's a joke. The whole Stuart Smalley Saturday Night Live, I'm good enough, smart enough mantra thing. It's a joke, but the more we say these things to ourselves, the more it can actually kind of get into us. And the really crazy thing is, if you ever want to make a behavior change, if you just say it out loud to the people around you, not as an accountability. Like if I say, hey, I want to eat better. I want to focus on eating better. And if I just say that to people in my life, not saying like, hey, Sarah, I want you to come back and call me tomorrow and see how I ate. No, but I'm just telling you, I'm planning on eating better. The more I do that, the more there is this kind of like weight on me that I put on myself to follow through on that. And it's a kind of a weird thing. So the more I am able to say like, hey, I am good. I'm a good enough person. I can handle this. Those things are going to build up, and believe it or not, it sounds really funky, but it actually does work.
Well, I'm going to try it, and I hope all the listeners try all these things because for me, in terms of, for it was getting into a rhythm post retirement. That was always something in terms of even working out,
Mm-hmm.
where my days used to be 9 to 12. That would be a long day, and now I'm up at 6:30, and I'm finishing work. It's almost 4 o'clock now, so the for me, trying to get into continually develop new habits and create new rhythms has been something for me personally that's been challenging and something that I've had to make a point to try to do this. And when it comes to kids, we talk, obviously, we're going to talk to Ari and Ramon. What are some trends or habits that you've seen kids really have to focus on for mental health to take care, just to take care of themselves better? Is it less social media? I know it's tough. You can't be like a parent, but are there certain things that you're saying, hey, if they can focus on this? I think you brought up be active, eat well, and sleep well, or what are certain things that they can take with them?
Yeah. First thing first, social media. I kind of look at social media kind of like junk food. It'd be great if it was just gone and we'd all be better for it, but we know that it's not. So then look at it as like do it in moderation. You know what I mean? Figure out a way to do it in moderation. Maybe certain parts of your day, maybe not as much as you used to. A lot of people have success with limiting the number of apps or the times they look at it there. Those are some things that I would recommend for social media. The other piece of it is besides those basic things like sleep, eat, move your body. There's also a lot of other research out there talking about the benefits of social connections with people, talking about just mindfulness activities, which as a psychologist, when I was first in school, if you said, hey, 20 years later, you're talking about mindfulness stuff, I would have been like, wait a second, something went really wrong. But no, really are great things to be doing. Being out in nature and just taking care of your mental health, whatever that may be. That may be a therapist, that may be, things that you've identified along the ways to take care of your mental health. Like, hey, I'm going to go for a walk, plug in my headphones and just zone out for an hour each day. That's my mental health. That's what I need to do. So those are some other things that I think everybody has access to that are really helpful. And I want to say, I think I said all 7-ish of those things. To feel good, you don't have to do all 7. These are 7 buttons that you could push at different times. Like for example, nature. We live in Minnesota. Nobody, or I should say, very few people are going to want to go for a walk in the middle of February. I mean, nobody, but that may be doing something else. So maybe you pivot and you do something more socially at that time. Not like you have to do all 7 of those things absolutely all at once. It's just a matter of these are 7 just different points that you can hit on when you need them.
Yeah. And then that makes sense. It's also, I think, this is a thing. This isn't some sort of myth where we used to think being vulnerable and being having a tough mental load, it was just you're not being tough enough, right? Like this is not. This is like actual stuff, and you have to make a concerted effort. It's not easy to necessarily get up and go on a walk if you have homework or if you have a schedule. You have to actually make time for some of these things, and you have to actually express your frustration if you can, and you got to do that. And we talk about all different emotions and things the way people feel. Like we touched about emotions in our pre-talk, and again, I want to rehash that conversation. In terms of expressing emotions and talking about your mental health, what emotions are okay to express and okay to show to your peers, to people around you?
I think it really depends on the context. I think we're talking a lot about players and athletes. It may be socially okay to show a lot of anger on the field when something doesn't go your way. That may be socially appropriate. Not probably just as appropriate to show that in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an okay place to show that level of anger. Similarly, out on the field, you're probably not going to want to show a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear about something, but in the classroom before a big exam, you might have some anxiety, fear, and that may be okay. That may be okay. So it may be context specific, and maybe based upon what we've all learned growing up in our experience of the adults around us, what we saw. I think there's a big change going from those. I often joke with my clients about the kind of wheel of emotions that we all learn in kindergarten, sitting on the mat of like the 4 to 6 emotions: glad, happy, sad, mad, whatever they were all. Um, from going to that to folks can search the internet and find these real intense wheel of emotions with dozens and dozens of emotions on it that have a lot more adult emotions on them, things that we never thought we'd think about back then, things like shame or guilt or jealousy that are really hard to deal with. And so when we start talking about adolescents, they're on their way of figuring out what these things are and developing those things. And so it's a matter of figuring out, what am I experiencing? Because they're experiencing some of these adult stuff along the way. It's not just those same 4 to 6 emotions that they learned in kindergarten. And so it's a matter of, how do they get to that information? How do they figure out what that is that they're experiencing?
Yeah, well, my son has one of those emotion books, so I might need to throw that one out now, considering there's like 37. You said this one had
it's a start. It's a start. And realistically, those other things will come as they all get older, as we all get older. So yeah, it's part of that evolution, part of that development as an adolescent, as a young adult.
Mm-hmm. So then, what's your advice, for players in the academy? Obviously, we can talk about the Change to Chill program, but from an expertise perspective, there's a lot of moving pieces. Well, social media didn't exist when we were growing up.
No.
I would get home from school, and I would say, "Hey, Mom, I'll see you at dinner." No phone, nothing. I'd leave, just bike around the neighborhood. My mom had no clue where I was at. Now we got tags, we're tracking people. Kids are posting photos when they score a goal and it gets 1,000 likes, and then you lose a game and you get 12 likes on a photo. So then it kind of reinforces that. But there's a lot going on. So what's your just general advice to kids within the academy about how they can just take care of themselves?
I think one of the big thing is talk about it. Find people you can talk about it. And when I say that, I know this is not something you can talk about with everybody. We all have people that we're close to, that we can share kind of the innermost stuff of what's going on with us. And we have people that we kind of hold at arm's length away, and that's okay. That's okay. But figure out who you can talk to about this. It may be a very close friend, it may be a parent, it may be a coach. When you're not feeling right, figure out how you can talk to those folks. The other thing too, that is a really simplistic way of thinking about things, but is put some words on how you're feeling. And I think, especially as adults, we may leave our work, or we may go do something. We got this, the example I often use is like, we got this pit in our stomach, and it's like, what's going on? What am I feeling here? I'm feeling some sort of negative emotion. What is it? Am I angry about something that happened, or am I like frustrated about something happened, or am I worried about what's going to happen tomorrow? And the more I can put words on that, the more it kind of clears up how I'm exactly thinking. And then the path of, okay, what do I do about this becomes a little bit clearer, versus just kind of wallowing and feeling negative. Yeah. So the more people can put words on their emotions, the better.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really, really, really sound advice. And when you say put words on it, if you can't do that, certain players and people can talk about their emotions a lot easier, and some can't. Are there any signs, even for me, as someone who is working with the first team staff, worked with the 18s, what are some ways that I can recognize that maybe someone's not okay, right? Or body language, or are there certain cues where I can go, this is not adding up with this person's personality. I'm going to go ask them and try to open this, because at times I've tried to take pride in my ability to be the emotional mop and mop up the verbal diarrhea that some of my teammates, or verbal vomit, whatever. Yep. Diarrhea, vomit. It's dirty regardless.
We gotcha.
Yeah, but I'm cleaning up some of these things, and I love doing that, because I like my teammates to be vulnerable, because I know it's not easy, and I need to do it myself. But what are cues that people can take to look at their coworkers, family members, teammates?
And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, when this is not adding up to their personality, that's the cue. I can't say when they act this way, or they behave this way, or those sort of things, because everybody acts and behaves differently and in different contexts. So if you're seeing something that's drastically different, that's a time to jump in and say, hey, what's going on here? It may be different in how they act. It may be different in emotions. Maybe different just in their posture. It might be how it looks, and that might be a thing. The other thing too is, this sounds really stupid, but we got to be ready for people to come to us and say, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And I know when we talked before, we talked about a lot of professional athletes who are out there now who are taking time off from their seasons because they are telling their teams and thereby the public say, I'm not okay. I got to go back and check myself and make sure that I'm okay. And I think the more we recognize that and more kind of applaud that, hey, you got to take care of yourself, the more likely that, for every Kevin Love that will write an article about this, there'll be, some high school basketball person on the JV that's going to go to the coach or the parents and say, look, I'm not good. I can't do this. I can't participate right now. I need to get myself well before I get back. And so those more examples I think we get, the better. So
That's yeah, it's really good advice. And this podcast goes out to the entire MNUFC family as a whole, or even whoever might just want to listen, for the casual listener. Hopefully, we can draw some more people in, because I think we're having a really good, honest, insightful conversation. And again, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. But part of it is we talked about the academy with our boys' academy. Is there any difference between what emotions or feelings boys and girls might go through? And if there are, could you please touch and speak to that?
It's a tough question because it's also this also really does.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. Now we got the burning one.
Okay, we got the tough ones now. Okay, yeah, it's a tough question, and we talked about this a little bit, and I thought a lot about it, and it's hard because emotions are so personal. Emotions are so personal for who the person is and their environment. Meaning, if we're talking about athletes, their team, their sport, their whatnot. As I was thinking about this, I really got into starting to think a little bit about not so much the gender roles, but the sports that everybody participates in, ones that are like kind of the competitive team sports versus some of the sports that are like based upon judging, like performance, and I know there's a lot of girls, a lot of women, into the like gymnastics and things like that. If you think about that, it's not just going out there, can I beat the person in front of me? Can I do what I'm doing as best as I can? And sometimes that becomes, can I do what I'm doing with no mistakes? And that starts to put people in situations, whether you're a gymnast or a diver or other things, where how do you do something without mistakes? I haven't figured out how to do it yet in life, and so it starts to get at that perfectionism where perfectionism is a crazy thing that we all applaud and say, oh, they're so perfectionistic. But realistic, if we truly are perfectionistic, we're knocking ourselves down every time we make one little error or whatnot. And really what we should be looking for is to doing the best that we can, trying to excel there, to get to that state of excellence versus being perfect. And I think about the sports that are judged versus the sports that are competing. I mean, I remember playing team sports, and I remember there were days where I'm just like, I don't have it in me and I'm not good. And this is the days before social media, and nobody's calling me out because I didn't perform that well, because the 10 other people on the field did a great job. You know what I mean? And so when you start to do those judge sports where it's a solo and whatnot, it can be very intense in those situations. So
I can only imagine. My niece is in gymnastics, and I again, she's very, very young, maybe even too young for some of these conversations. But again, I can only imagine the difficulty of having to do your routine for yourself, for your coaches, for judges, and then be docked in front of you. Hey, oh, you missed this step. There's a missed point. Like that's extremely tough. And even you were talking about just being judged. A lot of times, if we do, we're not to go back to social media, but if we win a game, we'll have 30 comments. If we lose a game, we'll have 150 comments.
Yeah.
And I always urge players to never open the comments. Don't look at the comments. No. Don't be. And my comment to the fans, and I understand your frustration, no one's more frustrated about a performance than the player or the staff and the team. So you might be upset, but you're not going to out frustrate or be upset than us. And two, Seinfeld reference. Imagine if someone went to your job and criticized you because you made an honest mistake and you're trying to do the right thing. So yeah. Jerry Seinfeld did it where he went to, heckled someone at their job. Yeah. And so imagine if we did it. You know what? One of these days we're going to find someone. Me, Robin, Boxy, we're just going to show up at someone's job and start heckling them. Maybe not. I'm joking. But Before we leave, Doc, could you just quickly just potentially give one or two pieces of advice of just daily things that myself or someone else can do on a daily basis just to try to get themselves in the best way to operate at their, close to their 100%.
Absolutely. A couple different things that I think are really helpful. One is whenever I talk about coping skills with folks, people always bring up music. And I'm a big music person. We were talking about music before this. I think the big thing with music is to know what buttons music pushes for you.
Mhm.
What music do you listen to feel better? What music do you listen to get energy? What music do you listen to calm down at night? I worry about folks that have one style, one band, one album that they listen to in all those situations, because that may not hit them when they need to calm down, when they need to feel better. That may put them in a different mood. So I bring this up because music is something that almost everybody listens to and likes. I've worked with a lot of folks that have created lists on their or playlists on their phone that for specific emotions. My favorite one is I had a patient once that told me, that said, I have a playlist on my phone that says break glass in case of emergency. And I love that because that was their one that, like, when I'm really doing poorly, that would be something to listen to. The other thing, which I think is a little more foreign to everybody, is some sort of learning and practicing is a big key, some sort of relaxation breathing. And I use the term relaxation breathing because people have learned it in different words: relaxation breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, box breathing. There's a lot of different ways. Basically, deep breathing through your belly, long, deep breaths. You want to purse your lips like you're blowing out a birthday candle to extend those exhales. I love that for a couple different reasons. One is that it attacks the physiology of the emotion too and allows the brain to come back online and go, okay, I'm not reacting emotionally now. I can make some clear decisions about how I go forward. That's one of the best things I love about that. The other thing that I love about that is if we are focusing on our breathing, if I am sitting there for 2 minutes focusing on my breathing, I have to set down whatever is stressing me, whatever is worrying me. I have to set that down and to focus on my breathing. So I cannot think about my breathing and the stressful event that just happened. And then the last thing I will say about this is it's a wonderfully covert skill. It's a skill that can help you control your emotions in any situation. We're talking about athletes. They could do it on the field. They could do it when they're in a coaches meeting and coaches are pointing out something that they didn't do right, or they're having difficult conversations. We can do it in life. We can do it when we are in a job interview, on a date, when we're getting ready for a podcast. All of these things, nobody's going to point a finger at you and go, hey, what's that weird thing you're doing? Because you're just breathing. And it allows you to gain control of what's happening. So those are two of my go-tos that I would really recommend folks to grow for.
That was incredible. I'm going to practice. I'm going to breathe after this. And hopefully, take everything we've spoken about and preach the gospel. I can't thank you enough on behalf of myself, the club, this May to talk to yourself and to get all the incredible insights. I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, to talk to the club, and hopefully to pass on some knowledge again to the younger guys, to Ari and Ramon, who we're going to hear from after this. But again, this has been Dr. Shannon Wolf. Thank you so much for joining me on another incredible episode of Sound of the Loons podcast. Keep listening because we got a fun one coming up here with some boys who are way beyond their years in terms of their mental health. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. I appreciate being here.
Change to Chill is a free, award-winning mental well-being resource offered by Allina Health. Our interactive website is tailored to both youth and the supportive adults in their lives. Change to Chill helps teens become more aware of the things that stress them out and equips them with relevant tools and resources to better manage stress and anxiety so they can live happier, more resilient lives. Learn more at changetochill.org. Welcome back to a very special Mental Health Awareness Month Sound of the Loons podcast brought to you by Allina Health. I am your host, Eric Valentine, and I'm here with two young bucks, thankfully giving me some of their precious time. I'm here with Ari and Ramon. Welcome to the podcast officially. How are you guys been?
Good, Eric. Good, very good. The weather's here is getting nicer and just enjoying the time here.
I can tell. I
Yeah,
think we all have a little bit more sunburn than we'd probably like because we're getting used to
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Ramon, what's it like? Your goalkeeper standing back there by yourself. Is it a little bit different with the warmer temperatures?
Oh yeah, it's a little different, getting more tired than in the fall when there's no sun out. The little jogs and sprints that we have to do get a little more exhausting every once in a while.
Thank
But yeah,
God.
it's great to have the sun out.
That's awesome. And how have you guys been? Did you enjoy this past weekend? We had a decent little victory there.
Yeah, yeah, that was a really fun game to be at. The environment was spectacular and just everybody adding to the energy there. The fans, that was the most I've ever seen at one of the United games, and it was a really cool experience.
Yeah. I mean, listen, regular league game, no big deal. 3 points, get in, get out. Now we got Houston on the weekend. Um, but again, thank you guys so much for taking your time to come and chat with me. I'm extremely excited about this talk. Mental health is something that um, has really come into the forefront the past years. We've seen major athletes be a lot more vocal about some of the struggles they're going through, but it's not always an easy conversation, right? And I always try to like to open up some of these conversations by being a bit vulnerable myself. And I'll take you guys back to 2005, 2006. I don't even know if you guys were alive then, but please don't answer that question. Don't answer the question. um, I remember, working up throughout my entire youth career, trying to make it to residency, which is not a program anymore, but it was a youth national team program in Florida. And my brother went there, and I was trying and for years and years and years with the youth national teams. And a lot of times, if you don't get called in, you just don't get called in. You don't necessarily get cut. So after years of trying there, it was the under 17, under 16 program. I got called in. I got invited. It's a 2-year program. Awesome. Like this is my life's crowning achievement, and I made it to the program. We got settled in August. September 1st was the first day, and then it was basically in semester sequences after that. I then proceeded to get cut in December, right before Christmas. And I remember thinking, that my world was crashing down on me. And it was so interesting because um, there was always this stigma around males, and even to this degree today, where you have to kind of be strong and fight through the pain, and you're not allowed to show emotion and stuff. And I remember crying and thinking, man, I'm not allowed to cry because I got to get back out there. And so I was too embarrassed to go home because all my friends knew I was going to be gone for 2 years. So I was going to leave as a freshman, come back as a senior. And I got cut 3 months into being there. So I was too afraid to go home. So I actually stayed and then went to IMG. So I basically crossed the picket line in a sense. So I walked to the other side of campus. And instead of being on the national team, I was on IMG. And so I got to see my friends that were with the program go and do their own thing. And I was completely separate with just basically kind of at a boarding school. And that was extremely, extremely hard. But I remember, having nights where I'd cry by myself, times where I would feel really isolated, kind of like, looking through the fence, right? When the kids play basketball and stuff. And really being in a really tough situation. And I don't really know how I got through it. Probably not really in the most healthy way possible, but because we didn't really have avenues to talk to people. And you were viewed as weak if you did say you're really struggling in certain moments. So for me, I think about some of the stuff I went through and how I wish I would have done differently and talked to people and been a little bit more vulnerable and kind of seeked out some of the resources that we have today, because programs like the Change to Chill one that Atlanta Health provides that you guys participate in wasn't a thing for me. And I really wish I had avenues to kind of go out there and talk to people and have specific tools, that are meditation videos, whether they're worksheets or activities or just people, just resources. Because again, I think it would have probably changed me now, right? It's one of those things where I'll look back and be like, oh, if I wouldn't have been so bottled up, I might be a better dad, or I could have been, a better player growing up. But for me, that was really hard, and I went through a lot of tough things, and I can only imagine some of the things that you guys go through. But transitioning now back into today, enough about my sob story. The Change to Chill program, Ari, I'll start with you. What's it been like? For the average viewer who may not know exactly what it is, give us some insight into exactly what you guys do and what you go through.
So we have gone through, I think, two kind of meeting sort of things. at the facility with the Change to Chill program with the line of health. And we basically just talk about what mental health is, what people go through, and ways that you can express yourself so that you don't have those mental struggles.
And then, so could you have any examples? I mean, I know you're fresh to, you said you've only been to two. Do you have any examples or ways that you found really helpful for yourself?
Um, I would say so. Like in the fall for me, I wasn't playing a lot. I got here. I'm from Wisconsin. This whole academy thing is new for me. So I came here and was struggling a little bit in the fall. We had one of the meetings, and throughout the meeting, I think everyone kind of was a little vulnerable to each other. And then as the fall progressed into winter and now into spring, I feel like as a collective, our entire team is more together and vulnerable with each other. Like Ramon and I have plenty of conversations together about anything. I mean, what color the grass is right now,
There
or
you go.
like,
What color is it? There we go. We can dive into that. Maybe another podcast. We'll stick to this one.
And so I've found a way to bond with my teammates and have deep conversations with them so that then on the field, I can turn to the guy next to me and know he's got my back. Like we're going to get through it together.
Ramon, what are some of the conversations that you guys have? You talk about deep conversations. Is this like girlfriends breaking up with people? Is this playing time? You know, take us into, because as a high schooler, you're going through a lot, and we've all been there. Everyone listening has been there at some point. So what do some of these conversations look like, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it's mostly just like, so say we had a weekend game, 2 weekend games, we didn't perhaps get the minutes that we wanted or the performance that we were looking for. And it's just nice having a teammate that you can rely on to let know all this information and just know that you have someone there for you. Like
Yeah.
overall, how Ari said, our team bonded more than in the fall. Because in the fall, I would say we were all doing our own thing for the most part. Like after training, no one would really talk in the locker room, just kind of get your stuff and go like straight to school. But now it's like you see all the guys laughing after training, everyone hanging out in the gym. It's just a whole different vibe overall. And it's all thanks to Change the Chill, in my opinion.
It's interesting you say that, because I've worked now with your guys' team a little bit. What are you chuckling about over there? Are you, all right, what are you think of any? There's gonna be a good combo coming up. But you know, obviously I've seen it firsthand, and it's interesting you say that, because I haven't necessarily seen the disjointed group that you talk about. Because every day we come in the morning, and you know, the first thing I do, you guys are always in the gym, and it looks like vibes are high. And that's not always easy, because again, like playing time, you know, obviously, you know, the coach, Coach Alex makes those decisions. So, you know, and Coach Ramsey and whoever it might be makes the decisions on playing time. And that was always tough for me, because I always said I would retire if I stopped not caring about playing. And even up until when I was injured, I still really wanted to be out there because I thought I could help the team. Um, is it hard for you guys to be vulnerable to each other, or do you think you know, being in the Change to Chill program has allowed you to kind of take your guard down a bit? I'll start with you, Ramon, on this one.
I would say it allowed for me to put my guard down a bit because moving here from Michigan, when had just turned 14 for my U15 year, I felt like I was alone. Like I couldn't really talk to anyone. Like the first couple months were probably the hardest months I've ever had to just be on my own by. I felt like as soon as I would get home, I would just like be in my own bubble in my room, like feeling that I couldn't talk to anyone. But as time has went on, I've realized that everyone at the facility, I can talk to anyone, like knowing that they'll be there for me and have my back. It's just made my life a whole lot easier, and my performances have been improving thanks to that.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for sharing. I know it's not easy to talk about when you're not doing well or feeling alone. I know I've been there. Again, I was in Florida. When I moved to Norway, I didn't even know the language. I was living by myself for the first time ever. You know, I always had roommates and people I had known and really the safe haven. And suddenly I can't even speak the language. I can't talk to it. I mean, they could speak a little bit of English, but it wasn't the same. You can't connect on that same level. And Ari, you said coming from Wisconsin, did you feel something similar to that?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I remember my first week of training. I didn't know a single person here. I was fresh off the streets of Madison, and
Streets of
coming here,
Madison,
it was a whole different
the rough and tumble
thing.
streets of Madison.
The 608. Um, but like the first person I met was Will Smith. We were warming up right next to each other and just said hi, and it went from there. And even like the next weeks later, it was kind of just me and him. Like it felt a little awkward to like kind of reach out to like more of the guys, just because I come from a completely different thing. Like this is my first time being away from my family. I stay with a host family right now, and they're great. I love it. But it's just a completely different experience.
Mhm. And so now that you guys have both kind of settled in and you're feeling more comfortable and you both went through some peaks and valleys and everything like that, when new players come in, do you now feel it's almost your responsibility or, this leadership role to be like, hey, I've been there, bud. Like, let's have a chat, get to know the area, get to know you. Ari, is that something that you take, ownership of when you do get new players?
Yeah, absolutely. We got a kid from Charlotte, Brady,
Yeah, yeah.
he came into the academy this spring, and the first day that he was officially on the team, Ramon, Emery, and we took him out to Chipotle just to get to know him, make him feel like he's at home and like he's got people around him that he wants to be with.
That's awesome, dude. Kudos to you guys for having the sense, right? Like you guys, that's way above, the normal thought process of someone in your guys' shoes. So again, kudos to you because I know that probably went really far for him, and that's something where you might not get the thanks or the recognition. You're not gonna, write something about you in the Pioneer Press, but that takes leadership, and that takes you guys being vulnerable at one point in your careers to now be able to take that and try to make someone feel more comfortable. And so these conversations that we're having now, are these things that you have with your teammates, with your parents, or, who do you, obviously myself right now, this wall's been broken down. We can talk whenever I see you at the facility, but, do you guys, reach out to any other people? We'll start with
In
remote.
terms of just like
Yeah.
what we're going through.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I mean, for me, if I have a rough week of training, I'll turn to Ramon, I'll turn to Emery or Cal, and even some of my friends back home just to talk about what's going on, what's life like, any struggles. And they've all helped me get over that bridge. And I remember like back to the first change to chill thing that we had. I'm not sure if that's exactly how I would go about it. If we hadn't talked about ways that we can connect with our peers and ways that we can, like I was saying before, express ourselves in ways that we don't usually.
Yeah, no, of course. And Ramon, you guys say that you guys speak about some of these things and you talk to each other about after it's a long week. Obviously, being a goalie is difficult. The isolation and you're kind of out doing your own thing. I've talked to Dane about it. I talked to all my goalkeepers about just how tough it is and how mentally tough you guys have to be. But when it comes to taking care of your mental health, now that you have some resources and you guys are being vulnerable and you're talking about certain things, Ramon, what does that look like for you on just a weekly basis?
Yeah, I think it's just knowing that I can talk to Cristiano, Jono, Tom any day, and they'll be there for me any day of the week. Like I'm usually pretty like excited and outgoing in the morning, like just ready to go into training, acting all like crazy. And if Jono or Cristiano sees that I'm not really like all there in the morning, they'll like, start up some banter, keep it going, like just check in on me and make sure that everything's going all right. Like since my U15 year, Cristiano noticed that I was always like really tense in goal and like really nervous, especially coming here. So during the games, he would scream Madeira, which means wood, when I would get really tense. and he would just scream it whenever. It didn't matter if it was a corner kick in the middle of the game. And it would just give me a sense of relief to know that I really have someone like giving me support.
That's awesome. First off, shout out Cristiano. Incredible goal, one of the multiple incredible goalkeeping coaches that we have here, part of MNUFC. And that's great. I love that little tidbit about just understanding your players, because part of it is understanding the players and how you perform, making, top hand or crosses or whatever it might look like from a goalkeeper perspective, but it's also just knowing their personality and what they're like off the pitch. And those little things go so far. And I'm really happy that you guys have that connection and that the ability to have those conversations where he can recognize this and try to get you to kind of just chill out a little bit. And I would say lastly, to kind of wrap this up, first off, thank you guys so much for coming on and being vulnerable and talking about your story and how you got to MNUFC and how you're helping others along. For athletes out there that might be listening, for younger people that might be listening, what's some of your advice in terms of how to deal with some of the, whether it's moving, whether it's your mental health, whether it's not playing, whether it's even playing a lot, right? Sometimes when you have games and games and games and games, they might kind of blend together to where maybe you're not performing at your top level. What is just some advice that you have in terms of taking care of your mental health would you give to younger players or even players that might not be doing some of the things and taking the steps that you guys take? Ari.
I would say no matter where you are in your journey and whatever struggles you have, or maybe even there's no struggles that you're having, know that you always have someone there for you. Your family, your friends, there's always people out there that care for you and want you to succeed in life. So know that you can always turn to them. And is there kind of like you were saying, like kind of how males are supposed to be all the tough guys, like don't show any emotion, like it's okay. You can show emotion. We've all been there. It happens. That's how life is. But just know that everyone's there for you. And there's things like Change to Chill that they're a program for this specifically so that you can be at your highest level and perform to your highest performances.
Yeah, I think that's really well put. I would say that it used to be that males and boys had to be so tough, right? And appear to act tough to show their strength. But I think it's actually kind of changed a bit to where by you showing vulnerability and talking about certain things, that shows a strength that you know that you're okay not being okay. And you're comfortable at times when you might not be when you might be suffering from a little bit of discomfort. So that's really well put by you there. And lastly, Ramon, as a goalkeeper, again, kudos to you doing your thing. But to younger goalies out there, you've trained with us with the first team. What is some advice that you would deal with the goalie, whether it's getting over, you know what I mean? Like you might give up 10 goals in training, you might give up one. In a game, you might give up 5, you might give up 0. As a goalie, what would be your advice to younger goalies out there or others, again, that might be listening, that might not be taking certain steps you are to deal with some of the ups and downs that you go through being back there by yourself, in the net?
Yeah, I would say that just to be able to move on from your mistakes. Because I remember my first game here at Minnesota United, I lost the ball and got scored on, went into half, and Cristiano said to me, the clean sheet's over with. You just go out there and play your game. This is what we brought you here to do, Like just being able to move on from that, had a great season after that, like just forgetting about those steps. And I always felt that my first year, I was nervous to like hit long balls in training. Maybe someone would be like judging me if I didn't make it, like put in the extra work, hit those long balls after training, miss passes, like miss saves, because that is what's truly making you better. Mm-hmm. All that extra work and you working on the stuff that you don't think is your best ability truly does pay off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, well said, guys. Yeah, I think the work behind the scenes always doesn't show, but eventually when you do play at higher levels and you keep moving up and you're at Flex and you're at GA Cup and you're these things, that's when those moments kind of shine through, right? And I think they always say the true judge of someone's character is what they do when no one's watching. And I think that also is the same when you're a player, right? Obviously, you don't see all the work that we put in throughout the course of a week, but you get to see the game. So eventually those things kind of work out. But awesome, guys. Again, I really appreciate you coming on here to the Sound of Loons podcast brought to you by Line of Health and talking about the Change to Chill program brought to you by Line of Health. For the average person, they can go to changetochill.org and they can go and see a plethora of different resources and ways to help their mental health and activities and worksheets and videos. And before we leave, what has been something that has, like, just a quick tidbit, the last little thing, like I said, been something that's really helped you in terms of the Change to Chill program specifically, if we can reference that again, some of the products that they offer where you said, oh man, this is something I didn't do that I'm going to start doing, or I've been encouraged to now go talk or reach out to somebody. This has really been something that's helped me out of recent. And I'll start with Ari. No, let's start with Ramon on this one. Then we'll finish with Ari.
I would say what's helped me is just taking time in my room to just sit down, close my eyes, and just breathe. Or even outside, sometimes go down to the dock or like near a lake and just take everything in, like, because we're living this great life right now. We get to train in the morning, go to school for a little bit after. And it's just like we're living most kids' dreams. So you just got to take time to take that in, and Change the Chill really helped me realize that.
That's awesome. I need to do that. Seriously, I do. It was so funny because we trained today, and Dennis Cam said you could be out digging a hole somewhere, working, a blue collar job, hard hat on, and instead we get to play soccer. So I know the Change to Chill offers audio meditations, but I don't know if that's one of the things. I might have to check that out afterwards, which is a good call. Ari, what's your quick antidote right here before we head out?
I would say just vulnerability. I've been kind of saying it this whole podcast, but just being vulnerable, knowing you have people there for you, that's, in my opinion, the most important thing that Change to Chill with a Line of Health, they help you with and make you realize that there's people there for you and care for you. So vulnerability is just, it helps you a lot.
That's great, and that's a good plug. Don't take my job now. You even threw in the Trades of Joe. I know. I see what you did there. That's so good, buddy. Regardless, dude, it's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and being vulnerable and talking about these things. Again, for me, it's a sign of strength to go out and talk and be okay not being okay at times. But regardless, you guys have been killing it on the pitch. Thank you again so much for coming on. I know myself and the club really appreciate it. But regardless, have a great rest of your day, and that's been another episode of Sound of the Loons.